I'm never doing a king-sized quilt again. This quilt is 100% hand quilted, but it's machine pieced. The binding is all by machine, and I think that's gonna be okay. This quilt is special in its own way because it's a payback quilt, not in a revenge kind of payback way, but because I only have so much of a credit limit. So when I was buying parts for my computer, I maxed out my limit, and I knew that was going to happen, so my mom came along, I borrowed some money from her, and so I'm just making a quilt that will pay that back. My goal with this quilt was to make color families. Each color family had 3 distinct contrasts. So this is the high contrast, or the darkest one. This is the medium contrast, or the medium one. And this is the lightest contrast. I mean, other than the kitties, but you know, the background's all pretty good. So that is the lightest one. I finished my first column. I don't have a ruler long enough to measure it, so I got the measuring tape out, and that is taped to the floor. Since I'm going to do 2 red columns, this one is angled inward like that. So it's kind of like a herringbone idea, I guess. So it's adapted from a magazine, and this is what it looks like. But I adapted this to a king-size quilt because the original size is for a 56 by 64. I purchased a yard of each, so I have 3 yards. I cut my 1 yard yesterday into 6-inch strips by width of fabric, and then I just cut my pieces from that. So I have a bunch of those already. This is all the leftover. And then I also have cream and some white. I cut 4 A-size pieces, 2 B-size pieces, 6C, 2D, and 6E. And I used all of the A's, B's, and E's with this. So I cut 20 pieces for each. I used 15 of the 20, 13 of the 20, and 13 of the 20 here. 5 of this one and 5 of that one. I used just over half what I cut. I have this as a leftover. So for the next column, I'm going to be experimenting and seeing how many I actually do need to cut out, and that way I don't have so many extra pieces. I quoted myself to cut out 4 A's, 2 B's, 6 C's, 2 D's, and 6 E's. I've changed that a little bit. So it's 4 A's, 2 B's, 4 C's, 2 D's, 6 E's. This is the length, just here on the floor. Sew a bunch together here, then I press the seams open. From this quilt, what I'm really borrowing is the cutting chart and the picture of the quilt. So I'm just gonna keep cutting, and holy shit, there's a raccoon outside. Fresh slice. Oh, it's not a fresh slice. I forgot I cut into this one already. So 6 divided by 1.5 is 4. And I know this because I've already done the math. Don't compliment me on my mental math skills, because I actually had to figure that out on a piece of paper. So I said B's, C's, D's, and E's. Sounds like the inside of a Victoria's Secret. No one fillets a quilt like I do. Length in relation to width matters quite a bit for this specific quilt because of the angle. So if you have a sharper angle, fabric cuts might need to be a little bit skinnier. But now I have all of my reds in this specific shade. This goes in my discard, and I still have 6 by width of fabric. So you do get a little bit extra. I don't know if I'm gonna use all of that. That's the other thing. So I finished the red columns. They're done. Woo. And now I'm working on the orange columns. I'm going to show you myself cutting them. You can do a 90-inch strip. That's what I've been doing. My columns are 90 inches. You can do one in a few hours. I mean, you could probably punch one out maybe in an hour or 2, but you have to have that momentum. And for me, I had that momentum on the first one, and the second one, not so much. From one 12-inch by width of fabric strip, you can get 12 E pieces, 4 D pieces, and 6 C pieces. I think I did that right. So I've got enough for 2 columns from this, and I'm moving on to my next 12-inch. So I'm cutting more. Please enjoy this aesthetic video. Someone's gonna get mad at me in the comments and be like, oh Janine, you talk too much in your quilting videos. I'm aware. I have to sit through and edit all of these. There was way too much footage for this video, and I didn't even film much of it. A lot of stuff on the front end that I just hacked off. So this is cutting orange. She's so big. She's so big. That was a lot of work to get to that point. I decided to just put purple and pink borders on because I was running out of motivation. Oh, just kidding. I had no motivation to do most of this quilt. And now we fast forward like 5 months and I'm smoothing out my batting. I did have to add a piece of batting to this super wide batting because it wasn't big enough. And I used, I think, 110 inch wide backing. 3.5 yards maybe that I purchased just straight up. The orientation changed because it didn't fit. And this is trimming at the end of March. So it took me about 3 weeks to hand quilt. I don't have any videos. I do have photos, but unfortunately the files aren't compatible with this program. I don't know why that is. Apple is ridiculous. I don't know why I had to buy an iPhone, but I did, and I'm not going to turn back. But yeah, I can't for the life of me square up the quilt. Unfortunate, I know. I am almost done the king-sized quilt. It has not been 1.5 years yet. We're not going to get to that point, but right now I am stitching the binding on. I started on Thursday or Friday or something like that. I thought I could like easily pump it out in a few months, and that just didn't happen. But I mean, then again, I did start a new job. Some of my relatives have died. It poured all night and all morning, and it looks like it might pour yet again. So I'm out here with my brand new King Quilt. This is she. She's not washed yet. I finished her last week. I really don't know what there is to say. It's very sunny with a lot of cloud coming in, so we might get dumped on momentarily. This is the only day I can do this, so now it's out of frame completely. Isn't this fun? I just get the feeling if I stand here it's gonna come back and just wallop me. I believe she's about 105 inches by 100 and oh shit. There's a bit of a catch on here, so I hope I don't pull out any of my hand stitching. I don't know. This quilt is, could I say it's a labor of love? No, it's a repayment of debt. Hey, there's a robin's egg. About to get walloped by my quilt. Get literally clotheslined. For the binding, my idea was to do this purpley fruit floral pattern, and then the other half was going to be the leftover yellow from the back, and then I would cut it into strips and bind it. And I attached it all properly, and when I went to flip it over and start sewing it with the machine, the purple floral flipped over and looked very nice. The yellow did not. There was a lot of twisting and a lot of flipping, and a lot of just disgruntledness going on. So I was like, I'll just hand stitch the yellow. It won't take too long. And then I was stuck in some kind of like waiting mode for, I want to say 7 to 10 days, while I did like 4 stitches a day because I hated my life, and it didn't work out. So then I finally got the motivation. I was like, this shit is not going to get done. Do not pardon my language. My anger was boiling over. So I pulled the yellow out in a moment of clarity. I ripped it completely out, all my hand stitches, all of that nonsense, and I cut some more of this purple floral. Then I flipped the binding over and stitched it, come here, and stitched it with the sewing machine instead of hand stitching it, because you can imagine how long that's going to take. Finished that in probably an afternoon. I admittedly didn't do the best job, but done is better than perfect. I also attached a label on the back, but not on the front. It just says handmade with love by Janine. And I keep forgetting to put this on my other quilts. So this is the second quilt that I've labeled with it. You see this? See? That's all hand stitching. It looks okay on the front, but the back, there's like super flippy, lots going on. Instead of focusing my lens, I'm just gonna move the clothesline. Can you see that? That's my label. Ooh, we're doing some interesting things today, aren't we? Yeah? And then you move it back a little bit. I can't do this. I think this is the best you're gonna get out of the whole experience. I'm feeling very good right now. I have returned cooler than before. In theory, it could have been done in a shorter amount of time, but in reality, there's no way that's going to happen. I'm not really providing a pattern for a lot of the stuff I do because I'm like, why would you want to replicate it? There are thousands, millions maybe, of quilt patterns out there. You don't have to do what I do. I am my target audience, okay? If it's not for you, that's okay. It's not going to make sense for me to explain how I did this quilt. It's fail it yourself, kind of. Let it sit on the floor upstairs for a few months. So it's really been doing nothing. It could have been done like in a year had I sent it to a long arm, but I didn't have extra cash. I bought a car and I had to get snow tires. Yeah. I did get a raise in March though, so I'm making $1.50 more per hour. I hope you enjoyed. I know this is gonna be one hectic video to edit. If you're interested in some of my other quilts, they're not tutorials. This quilt and this quilt, and you can subscribe here. I don't know where I'm gonna put all these buttons. I have a playlist with all my quilts if you would like to see that, or don't. But yeah, this is my April video that it was supposed to be going up in March and didn't. There was a lot going on. There's always a lot going on though. That's all for now. See you later. There, I'm proud of my efforts.